Hi. We got a lot of parrots last episode. Not enough to actually do anything with them just yet, but enough to make me not want to mess with parrots anymore. So we're gonna not focus on parrots this episode and do something else in our mangrove swamp. We've been making this for quite a while now. We finished all the trees, but we haven't done some other things that I want to do. One of the big ones is the terrain. We need to dither this mud out a little bit better and kind of make a gradient between the mud and the grass, and then also do a little bit more with some of these big grassy areas so they look a little bit nicer. What we're going to need is soil for the most part. We're also going to need a bit of mud, coarse dirt, and grass, but luckily we have plenty of those things. Soil is the main culprit. It's the main thing we need. So I have a shovel. I don't know where a soul sand valley is, but let's go and try and get some stuff. Well, I've traveled quite a bit, and I think I found quite possibly the world's smallest soul sand valley. This is it. It's like, I don't know, 7 blocks across. What is going on here? I don't know. This is funny. We have soul soil here though, so we're gonna grab some and head back. Alright, we got everything we need. Some shulker boxes, not quite full of soul soil, cursed dirt, and mud. So, what are we actually doing? Well, I'm going to basically remove most of the grass here after moving the parrots. We're going to have to move the parrots so we can work here. But I'm going to move most of the grass, remove all of this, and then start doing a little bit of texturing to kind of mix in some of the mud and coarse dirt and everything like that. Make it a bit more of a smooth transition, but I figured we could maybe have a couple spots like this where it's inset into the ground and fill these with water. So not flowing water, but water. And then we can do a little bit more texturing around these with even more mud and stuff. But we'll get to that in a second. I think for the first bit of this, we're just going to kind of try and dither the mud a bit. Alright, we have our first island all muddied up here, and it is looking quite a bit better than it did before. There's a few things left to add here, but before we get to that, I kind of just want to talk about what I did here. Now you can kind of obviously see that there's a path that goes through here. Now, swamps are usually kind of hard to navigate, so having a well-marked path like this, was something I didn't really want to do, at least not everywhere. Now, I think in this spot it makes sense that this little stretch of land would be a little bit elevated compared to that little like pocket of water there and the shore. So I wanted the terrain to kind of match that, and it ended up making a pretty well marked path, which is good because I also wanted a pretty well marked path there. But there's another place I wanted a path that goes through here, basically splitting the island in half. And that's obviously not very well marked. You can see that there's lily pads over there, and I think down here there's lily pads here too. But there's not really a like direct path. Well, there is. You can walk your horse through here, but you're not going to actually have a very well marked path. Basically, it makes the swamp a little bit more difficult to navigate, and I think it looks a little bit nicer for the general area. We're going to add a little bit more grass and stuff, and it's going to be even harder to see. And I think that's just kind of like a little thing where if you know it's there, That's kind of cool, but if you don't know, you're just kind of not going to notice it, which is fine. So what are we going to do now? Well, we have a couple islands actually left to finish. You can see that this one over here has all our parrots and frogs on it. I don't want to have to move these guys around like 7 times, so we're not going to do that just yet. We're going to continue to focus on this island and do the foliage and other details first. Now, before we do the foliage, I actually want to talk a little bit about the process of doing that. Basically, the most important thing to keep in mind while doing foliage is kind of spacing in between elements, kind of which areas would be the best places for grass to grow. And now we already have a couple of things that already determine that, like trees. Of course, you don't want grass like growing under a tree because it'd be in shadow. And you want a lot of grass around water, so like these little pockets and ponds, these are going to have a lot of grass around them. But there's another thing that's going to affect the way we place grass, and that is mostly going to be the crocodiles. They're going to like be all around the shoreline, and you kind of have to judge spacing based off of these guys. So we're going to need to build these first, and to build these I need tough. So we're going to have to go mining, and then we'll come back and do this stuff. We're ready to make some crocodiles. We have pretty much everything that will end up in this barrel. There's only a couple things that I probably forgot, but there's also some things that just can't go in barrels, like camels. If you don't know what the camels are for, we're going to basically just put them underneath our crocodiles. We have one down here already, and they make little noises, and some of them kind of sound like crocodiles, so I thought it was a neat detail to add, and I still do. So we're gonna do that across the swamp, you know, anywhere where there's a crocodile. But where are we going to be putting these guys? I want most of them to be next to the shoreline, so like maybe like one right here or something. But we actually don't have much of a shoreline that's not covered up by trees. So there's only a couple spots, like maybe behind that tree, like over there, maybe around here somewhere. We can do a couple crocodiles and maybe do like 1 or 2 that's a little bit more inland as well. But for the most part, I just want them around the shore, and that's going to be probably the easiest way to do this. After that, we'll get to all the grass and stuff, but we'll do the crocodiles now. Alright, we have about 7 new crocodiles here and 5 camels is what we used, which is not the same number of crocodiles, but I'll explain what happened there in a second. Basically, there's 2 types of crocodiles that we added here. There's the small ones and the big ones. They both have camels underneath them. That's not what happened, but there's just kind of 2 designs here. I'll probably add in more as the build progresses, like have a couple more designs here I think will look cool. But what happened with the camels was over here we have a little group of crocodiles, and I didn't want to put 2 camels like right next to each other because we don't really need the sounds to happen that frequently, so we just put 1 camel under there. But there's another crocodile over here that would have been really hard to get a camel into. We have like all these leaves on top of it and all these trees, and like it would have just been hard to get a camel in there. So I figured it wasn't quite worth it, and we ended up just not putting a camel in over there. That's pretty much all there is to say about crocodiles. I mean, we're done with them, at least on this island. We're gonna have more later, but foliage. Foliage is what we need to add now. We have different things I want to add: firefly bushes, grass bushes. I have drip leaf, I think, and I have lily pads and vines and stuff like we're gonna be adding a bit of stuff there. Leaf litter, and I think I have leaves, just like regular leaves as well, so we might have some like bushes dotted around like that. I'm not exactly sure what we're all going to add here. I haven't really thought about it much, but I'm sure it'll look good. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, I have placed grass, the most exciting thing in Minecraft for sure. But really though, we're almost done with this island, like completely. There's only a couple details left to add. But before we get to those, let's talk about what I've done here so far. We placed grass, but as you might know, and I totally knew before I placed the grass, you can't place grass on soul sand or soul soil, which, like I said, I totally knew. But yeah, we had to kind of adapt our strategy here to make it look more natural whenever there's kind of just bald spots dotted around the swamp. Didn't think that one through, but it looks nice, and I think I actually kind of achieved the look really well. I like this a lot. So that was, convenient, I guess. But over here, we have leaf litter. That's another detail I added. In real life, mangrove swamps have leaf litter like all over the floor of the swamp. And it's actually like a pretty important part of the ecosystem, kind of like the ecology and everything of the area. So I thought that would be a nice detail to add, but also it just looks nice. So I kind of dotted those around. Yeah, we're actually going to need more leaf litter, but we'll get to that later. In other news, we have fireflies in the daytime, which we achieved by putting firefly bushes under the ground, which means that we have bugs in our swamp, which I think is just a great detail to add here. But that's pretty much everything there is to talk about. Now, what are we going to add? Well, frogs and parrots. These gray parrots look kind of like different types of waterfowl. So we're going to add those to our trees, and frogs to our swamp area. We're going to have them tied to fence posts so they can't like escape. But they should still be able to kind of like walk around and make frog noises, which just kind of adds to the atmosphere of the swamp. And the birds will be up in the trees. And I'll probably mix in some like pale oak fence post or something to kind of like make it a little less parrot intensive, and I think it also kind of makes a slight improvement in the way it looks from a distance, because like the parrots will stop being rendered and stuff. So I think that's just generally a good idea to do that anyways. But anyways, that's the plan. We're going to be doing that pretty soon. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that and finish this area of the swamp. We got birds, we got frogs, we got a finished swamp. Well, not really, just a finished swamp on this island. There's still more to do, like this area over here and everything. But this area is done. We have finished everything over here, which is pretty much what I set out to do this week. I didn't think we would get this far, but we did. So now it's time to move on to something else, and I don't know exactly what to do. We have more swamp to do, but we also are planning on doing a build after this swamp, and we kind of need resources for that we don't currently have. I need chorus food for that. specifically popped chorus fruit, but first we need regular chorus fruit to get the popped chorus fruit. And I don't really have any farm or anything set up for that. We do have the resources to start one. So let's go ahead and go on over to the industrial district, and I'll talk more about it. Alright, well, chorus farms are actually kind of simple. I mean, there's not too much you can do to like automate the process. They're pretty much just a manual farm. But you can do a couple of things here and there to speed up the process a little bit, which we'll try to do. But for the most part, we're just gonna like kind of put some chorus fruit down. I do want to kind of make two separate farms though, so one for flowers and one for fruit. A lot of the time I see people kind of combining it into one bigger farm that's a little bit harder to do and run, and I just rather, I think, have a two farm system rather than a one farm kind of thing going on. I think that'll be easier for me. Like I said, it's all manual though, so we're gonna have to like do it on ground level. That way it's easy to access. So I think we're just gonna do it around here. We have plenty of open space since we moved our sheep. We're there. So we're just gonna build it around here somewhere. Alright, we have a chorus flower farm. This isn't the fruit farm, that's going to come in a minute, but this basically just works by putting chorus flowers on an end stone, and then they grow and kind of spread out once they hit the glass. I don't know who originally like found this mechanic, but it's been used in a bunch of chorus flower farms for a pretty long time, and I mean it's just simple, easy to use. I mean it's just nice to have. So we're going to move on to the fruit farm now, and this is going to be a little bit more redstone complicated, intensive, and all that kind of thing, because I basically just want to be able to just place the flowers and not really think about it. Yeah, it's still going to have like kind of things going on. It's definitely a semi-automatic farm, but it should be an interesting build, so we're just going to build it like right over here. Yeah. The farm is done. We got a fully functioning chorus fruit farm. It's right there. It works. I had to troubleshoot this thing quite a bit because mostly the like bud powering of pistons kind of thing going on. Like you basically just can't power pistons from the top in this situation, and so I had to like kind of figure that out the hard way. But everything else is actually really simple stuff. I mean, there's really not too much to go over. This little like etho hopper clock kind of thing that's more so like a pulse extender is kind of like the only complicated bit of redstone. Everything else is really quite simple. It's just like a redstone line to power these pistons. But yeah, that's pretty much it. How this thing works is I press this button, it shifts the floor so everything gets broken up here, and then some hopper minecarts go back and forth to pick everything up and put it in a chest. That's it. That's the whole thing. We put a chorus flowers in manually because we harvest those from this other farm, and it just works. You can see because we still have some like white chorus flowers that these guys are still growing. So we might harvest them early just because I want to show you guys how this thing works. It's not really much of a waste. So let's go ahead and move that, and you can see everything starts getting picked up here. And yeah, we probably can change the timer there so it only like goes back and forth once or twice instead of however many times it does it now. But yeah, now we just put flowers on the top here, and that's it. This is the farm. Yeah, So we'll probably be AFK here for a while. I need quite a bit of purple. And in the meantime, I think I'm going to end the episode here. So thank you guys all for watching, and God bless.